Hello and welcome to this latest Business Spotlight interview. I'm delighted today to be joined by Susan Guiterrez-Inostroza from Legacy Habitat Banks. Hi Susan, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Hello.
Good. Thank you for joining me today for this interview. I'm looking forward to finding more about what your business is doing. We had a quick chat before, so yeah, just looking to get some more information on that. So it sounds really interesting and fascinating about what's potentially in the pipeline for new housing developments and all kinds of developments. So yeah, with that in mind, if you could give me a little bit of background on yourself and the business at the moment.
Yeah, so we started working on what's now known as environmental projects on our family farm in Preston, in Garstang, back in 2004. So we've been doing it for quite a while, but under different guises and different descriptions. We have memorial woodland, and we planted 3,500 trees with woodlands from waste. And with the end idea being that people would be buried on site or could have their ashes scattered, and we will be turn this site into a nature reserve, and the people will be here in perpetuity. And we will be enhancing the habitat and looking after the environment by doing this. In March 2021, we formed Legacy Habitat Banks, and that was me and my son and my husband, and a sort of a family business. And we ran a test site to see about the new legislation that had come in with the Environment Act and how we could create a habitat bank. So we looked at the site and we carried out what is known as a baseline study, which tells you basically how many units you could create on your site with an uplift and a management plan. So that's how it started. And when we did this, we then thought, oh, actually, this is a way to increase habitat and the environment, helping nature on other sites. And we just thought we'd have a talk to our neighbours, do it a bit locally. That really quickly expanded. And before we knew it, we were out of our depth and thinking, oh, heck, what we're going to do now. So we looked around and we took on some partners who were more business-minded people than we are, because we're more an environmental side of things, the landowner side of it. And we were joined by our chairman, Stephen Goldstein, and he brings along his surveying company and lots of legal contacts, and it's actually CBRE for the enhancements he did in the jewellery quarter in Birmingham. Brings a whole great deal of wealth with him. And the second gentleman, Mark Bonner, who comes from the finance industry and renewable energy industry, which is how I met him. So then it became a more serious, this is going to be a business rather than we're going to be able to sell a few units and get paid for what we've been doing anyway on land. So Legacy Habitat Banks was then formed into a company with lots more people involved, and we started to look at how we could expand this into business across across England, because it's only legislation in England at the moment. So obviously this is a brand new industry, a brand new sector, so we've had to create everything from scratch. Every legal document, everything, totally every model has had to be done from scratch. So we've had to take on strategic partners like Irwin Mitchell. We're working with Harper Adams University, CBRE. All of these partners have come together to help create, well, to model the industry as it's moving forward now. That's how we started and where we are now, basically, quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just amazing how these things kind of evolve from what started out as one idea to give back. Because obviously I was reading about, the legacy woodlands, which obviously looks like a fantastic opportunity for people in that sector, but then to kind of evolve it into what you've got now or potentially got now is always, how these businesses sometimes come about, right? Without, you just don't know what's around the corner when it comes to the opportunities that the business world can provide. So you mentioned earlier on, you were talking about, so how does it work in terms of the way in which you can help, with the way that the development and the legislation is going, how you would then come in and help provide that service for developers in the future?
Basically, the Environment Act has said that any future development, well, the majority of future development has to have a biodiversity net gain of 10%, which means if a developer has a site and he has his baseline study done with the ecology, it tells him how much habitat has been destroyed by his development. He has to provide 110% net gain. So majority of that can't be done totally on site, although there's a mitigation hierarchy, and he should try to do it on site, not destroy ancient trees, little damage to the environment as possible. But the damage that's unavoidable, usually to grassland, for example, he has to mitigate. So then what happens is he looks at what he can do on site, and then he would approach somebody like us at Legacy Habitat Banks, but off site. And what we do is we do joint ventures with farmers, landowners, and we work together to create units that the developer can buy and to create habitat or enhance the habitat. So at the landowner site, we do the similar thing. The baseline study is set, and in that once the baseline study is set, we then create a management plan, by which we use DEFRA's metric, which is a measurement tool that creates the actual units. It's not a 1 unit per square meter or anything like that. It's far more complicated because nature and ecology is complicated. So the ecologists input the information into DEFRA's metric according to the plan and our ideas of what we want to do on site. That will then produce the number of units that can be created or enhanced on the landowner's site. Those units that we can sell to the developer, because everything has to be additional. So it doesn't count what's there already. It's only anything we can add to the site to make it more biodiversity friendly. It's brand new enhancements or creation. Once those units have been created, we can then offer them to developers to offset their biodiversity net gain. Because basically, the easiest way to say is if the developers haven't got BNG units in place, biodiversity net gain units in place, come January 2024, then they can't have any planning permission. They have to have it. It's a requirement, and it's signed into law with the Environment Act. So at this point, the developers can then go to the local authorities, and they'll put forward a plan to local authorities. We'll talk to local authorities and negotiate, because all ecologists will get an input to make sure everything that we say is there. And the developer's got his sums right, and we've got ours right. So once we get that done, the habitat units are accepted to be allocated to the development. And it means once he gets planning permission, he can start his development as long as he owns the units at that point.
Okay, perfect. So definitely, looking ahead to the next, well, clearly in the future, this is going to be a service and a business that people, developers are going to need to embrace. So out of interest, obviously being a brand new, almost feels like a brand new sector in business. Are you one of very few, if only the only business at the moment in this world? What do you know about how unique you are at the moment?
So there are a few habitat banks, although our model is unique. And we were in a recent study by CBRE said that we are actually the largest habitat bank currently. There are a few competitors who offer slightly different offerings, and 1 or 2 of those are large. Then there are lots of individual sort of big estates, housing estates. States that actually, I think, say they've got 1,000 hectares, they're going to look into creating units on some of their land on sites. But they're individuals rather than having. So the other thing is you need to create units as close to the site as possible. For example, if you buy a unit, if you're in, and I would say we'll use our site at Helms Deep in Preston as an example. If you're a developer and you're within my local authority, you only have to buy 1 unit for the units that you've destroyed. In my natural character area, which is also just 1 unit for 1 unit. But over the border into another local authority or NCA area, you have to have 1.25 units. And further afield, you have to have 1.5 units. And then if there's no units to be bought anywhere in the country, in England at the moment, then the government are providing statutory credits,
Right.
but far more expensive, and you need 2 credits for 1 unit.
Right.
So yeah, incentive is to do it as close to the site, if not on site, as close to site as possible.
Mm.
Trouble with individual habitat bank, say it's in East Anglia, they won't have any units available anywhere else in the country, where we will typically try to have a habitat bank in every national character area,
Right.
which means they'll only have to buy 1 unit for 1 unit.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And you mentioned you know being unique. What is it? Do you think? What is it about your business you know is unique in that sector then compared to your other competitors?
It's actually the way we deal with the landowners.
Okay.
So landowners, and we designed this for landowners' benefit rather than looking at it from the other side of the coin.
Okay.
We don't take a lease on the land. This is a true partnership. It's a commercial joint venture.
Right.
We have landowners, and we have a very equitable split with how this works. So what happens is there is a cost of creation to the unit, so the habitat being created, but also legally we have to look after, maintain that unit for 30 years. So the landowner has to sign a contract that it is for 30 years or 32 years in our case.
Right.
And what happens then is that we have to ring fence that money. So we have to look after it, make sure it's secure. And we have our own processes in place that makes that happen. So it
Yeah.
keeps up with inflation. And even if our company would unfortunately go bankrupt, go bust, then that money is safeguarded for 30 years outside of our business. So
Right. Okay.
habitat will be looked after, and the funds will be there to do the required reporting
Right. Okay.
as well, and reported on. So that's first. So that money is ring fenced, and that's about 40%.
Right.
After that, 40% is safeguarded. We then split with the landowner the rest. So 60% to the landowner and 40% for us.
Right.
The landowner gets that whole 60%, and he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have any liability or
Right.
responsibility moving forward. All of that remains with us. So all the responsibilities, all the upcoming deals and legislation, dealing with all the local authorities, the sales, the developers, all of that rests with Legacy Habitat Banks for our 40%. In other,
Excellent.
they take a lease,
Right.
and then pay the landlord a very small rent, which is like an agricultural rent, which is very low.
Mm-hmm.
They create the habitat and forward fund that. So first, they have a lot of debt. So that means that their venture capitalists and their investors get paid before the landowner does.
Right.
And also that habitat is created, and if they don't sell the units, the farmer can't use the asset. In our model, we only create and develop units as they're sold. So the rest of the farm, he can carry on farming, and if anything went wrong, he's still got the ability to farm it. It's not been tied up by the 30-year legislation.
Right. Okay.
So we are unique in that we are based landowners working with and for landowners.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like you say, it obviously sounds like a great opportunity for landowners. The joint venture is, you know, very appealing, and especially in the terms that you've kind of outlined. So yeah, I can see why that could be a great unique selling point for your business and growing the business going forward. So I guess some of the questions you know, one question I always ask is, what do you enjoy about what you do? But I'm guessing there's a real passion because you started 20 odd years ago in you know, looking to try and improve the, you know, ecology of the area that you're in as well. So is that what the main driver of this is? What, you know, what would you say you enjoy the most?
It was always about the habitat creation,
Yeah.
and just trying to make sure that we leave. I mean, legacy is there because the idea is that you leave the place in a better place than when you started.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
To be able to be enjoying secure place to live, because the environment is very, very essential.
Mm-hmm.
So hence the name.
Perfect. And again, you mentioned briefly that you've brought some people in to help you on the business side of what you're now embarking out on. What have been like maybe the biggest learning so far from your business journey to date?
I think it's been the fact that rather than take on a lot of debt, that we've on doing strategic partnerships,
Yep.
to look outside the box, just to think about how you can work with other people and other businesses,
Hmm.
benefit. And quite often you will find that you don't have it reduces costs and overheads greatly,
Sure.
and reducing for the idea of having to sort of take on lots of debt and before things, especially in this kind of industry where it's brand new.
Yeah.
Government likes to move the goalposts, in that this legislation should have been enacted this month in November 2023,
Right.
which was in time coming, but then they kicked the goalpost to January 2024. And so we've had to be able to be more flexible, and ensure that we can keep going until this comes in fully in force in January.
Sure. Okay. And so you've kind of built relationships and it's equity in the business rather than, trying to take on debt and things like that. But as you say, which if you can do that as a startup, clearly, yeah, that's if people believe in what you're doing, it certainly helps reduce those upfront costs and gives you more, cash flow is obviously the biggest driver of business failure. So yeah, if you can minimize that in the startup phase, then that's a really good place to be. So good stuff. That's good to hear. So looking forward, I know, obviously I know it's a very, very new business, but what do you see is like your main challenges going forward? If you're sitting here thinking, where am I going to be in a year's time? What do you think the main challenges in you achieving that will be? Maybe.
I guess it's the political landscape,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
quite challenging for this era, and also the fact that because it's really new, every time we work in a new area with a new local authority, or we talk to a new developer,
Mm.
it's like trying to reinvent the wheel. So
Mm.
getting the legislation through and actually proper guidance to make sure that, because at the moment every LPA does something different,
Yeah.
we have to deal with that every time we start up a new site.
Right. Okay. Of course.
Rather challenging, and rather costly in
Yeah.
time, legal side of things. So that's one of the biggest challenges. It's going to be, because it's a new market creating.
Mm.
It is a bit like the Wild West. There's a lot of bad practices already sneaking in.
Right. Okay.
So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge in the
Okay.
next 2 years. I'd say it's going to take to really settle down.
Yeah, of course. And I guess, like any business, it's the pioneers, the people that lead the charge that take the risk, but obviously first to market has its benefits. But yeah, you do then have to minimize, or try and minimize the disruption where things are not a level playing field, as you say. So are you looking to systemize things as much as you can? Is that kind of how you're trying to get through the next,
Yep.
longer term?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we have already transacted deals under the National Planning Policy Framework, where local authorities can apply
Right.
the a net gain. So we've gone through the whole process and getting systems in place. But
Mm.
for example, you can't buy a CRM that's going to run all the things that come in and everything else. And there's so many moving parts to this industry, that it's a major piece of work, just trying to get systems in place.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, but you feel like you've got the support in place to be able to deal with that stuff and the plans in place to ensure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're lucky in that so my son, I said, is also our part. Well,
Mm.
he's now CEO, but he has a surveying and a legal background, so that's
Okay.
been exceptionally helpful.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
And Stephen Goldstein is Alexander Stevens Surveyors, so we have lots of in-house help
Yeah,
besides partnerships that we were talking about. So
yeah. Perfect.
we're in a good place to have everything ready to. Well, we are ready to go because we've already done it. So
Yeah, sure. And do you envisage bringing on more people into the team as you grow? Would that be
yeah, we definitely are bringing on more people. As we speak, we're bringing on more people,
okay? Great.
levels and outside of the strategic partnerships. Obviously, they've got to be people on the inside of the company as we grow and move forward. So yeah, there's definitely lots of people going to be required.
Cool. And as you do that, and as going forward, what's important to you, or as the business, in terms of the qualities that you look for in those employees? What's important on that fact?
I think it is that they have to have a passion for the environment and what we're doing.
Yep.
It's not just somebody who wants to come and do a job 9 to 5, get paid and go.
Yep.
It's got lots of person skills, because they've got to deal with landowners, they've got to deal with developers,
Sure.
and they've got to go out there and be able to explain all of this new industry to people. Those are really the skills that we're looking for, rather than academic. It's a learning curve for everybody that's going to come to us. So
no, absolutely cool. And I think you may have answered this question already, but I'll ask it slightly different way. So in the time that you've been a business owner, what would you say has been your biggest learnings or learning so far?
Expect the unexpected is the best I can say.
Fair enough. No, absolutely, yeah. I think it's a fair point. In business, you can't rely. You can project and you can plan, but you've also got to be adaptable, and especially in an industry like yours, where it's very startup. I guess a lot of when people talk about startups nowadays, it tends to be around the tech base, doesn't it? In a way, but in what you're doing, you still got to have that flexibility and adaptability to deal with, as you say, what's around the corner. Focus.
Again, there'll be more changes this week as the secondary legislation comes in. So
yeah,
be able to adapt quite quickly.
Perfect. And finally, what inspires you? What has inspired you in the past? What's inspiring you at the moment in terms of your business and your business journey?
I think it still goes back to the environment. I said we planted 3,500 trees, and this was an intensively farmed piece of land when we started. It's not a very big piece; it's only 10 hectares, but it's a monitoring site. So we've developed this into a sort of a site where we can monitor and control everything that happens.
Yeah.
So, but going out walking, like earlier today, went to walk the dogs out in what's now become a young woodland.
Yeah.
10 years old now. And walking through there, and just the different. So we had an RSPB study there last year,
Right.
and we had 2 species of birds, including red listed birds like curlew nesting on site.
Oh wow.
We've got all kinds of insects and things just walking through the trees, and you can hear the birds. And we've 3 different types of deer have been seen on. In fact, one jumped the life out of me this afternoon.
Wow. Okay.
And we've got partridge and pheasant and pink-legged geese landed a few days in the ponds. So all of that shows me that it can make a difference. It does work, and it does make a difference, because what was once a barren field that had been farmed and grazed and had even crops grown on it, so it was very poor in biodiversity, is now a place where there's lots of nature and wildlife. So I think that's the inspiration. Just keep going out there to sites and see what it's going to be like in the future and the difference. So that's what inspires me still.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's as I say, looking at the woodland project that you had and what you're doing there, that is inspiring in terms of it's a great opportunity for people to have a place to reflect on things and go somewhere peaceful and quiet, and I think there's a lot of people that would be very interested in finding out a bit more about that. And obviously what you're doing now in terms of making sure that as we do develop more and more land in the UK, well, in England, obviously, as you say, it's directly England at the moment, that we don't lose the diversity and the ecology that we've got, because it's one of our greatest strengths, and especially in and around this part of the world, it's such a beautiful place to live that you don't want it destroyed fully by what development is. I guess there's an argument to whether it's necessary or not, but obviously the people will develop and continue to develop. So it's great that there's regulation in place to make sure that we don't lose the ecology of whilst that development is happening. So really interesting. Cool. Well, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. If people want to find out more about, I guess, either the Legacy Woodlands or the Legacy, sorry, excuse me.
Thank
Bang, yeah, sorry. Yeah, where can they find out more? I guess is my question.
The best place to do is go to our website, which
Yep.
is Habitat, legacyhb.co.uk.
Okay.
Or contact me directly on susan@legacyhb.co.uk.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much again, Suzanne. It's been great to talk to you, and good luck with the future. You know, and you know, I hope everything, you know, the plans you've got in place, you know, however, you know, ups and downs, I'm sure you're going to face over the next few years. I'm sure you'll be doing a great job, and the business will thrive. So, thanks again.